So today we will be starting with basic introduction. So I believe most of you have heard about Python, I believe, right? So today we will be getting to know more about Python. Okay, so I see a hand raised in the chat box from Vivek Raja. So you can feel free to post your question in the chat box, Vivek, and also from Santhya. You can please feel free to post your questions in the chat box, so it will be answered. Okay, fine. So let's first get into the topic. So I believe enough intro about the institute and what's the placement scenario and what is full stack. So all those things were given in detail by Sumi. So from my end, I will just try to elaborate more on Python and a bit more on full stack. And as told by Sumi, we will also be discussing on few basic things about database. So this is going to be the agenda for next few minutes. So I hope everyone are able to see the screen. So anyone, could you please give a quick confirmation? So is the screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Fine. So we can start with the topic. So first we will look into the basic introduction to Python. Okay. So here we will get to know when was Python developed, then after that, why it is one of the most used programming language. So all those things we will be discussing here. So here Python was developed in late 1980s and the developer of Python was Judo van Roosum. And you would have heard from many people that Python is simple programming language. And you might be wondering, so in my schooling, programming was a myth. So it was very difficult to understand C, C++, and how come people are saying Python is a simple programming language? So is it something different from other programming languages? You might be wondering. So at least one day or the other, definitely you would have. So I was one among you years back. So during my schooling, I also found programming very difficult. And after that, I started to hate programming languages because I was not good at it. Then eventually, I ended up in an IT firm. So obviously, I have to learn programming, right? So to survive there, survival of the fittest. So then I started to learn Python. I started to learn Java. So now I'm here. And considering my experience, when I parallelly learned Java and Python, so usually people will be having their learning curve, right? So learning curve is nothing but in this particular duration, what I have gained. So the gain in Python was more when compared to Java. So it does not mean that I am not saying like Java is not that widely used or not Java is that preferred. But the learning curve will be in a shorter duration, you will be able to gain more knowledge on Python. So that is why people call it as a simple programming language. So you can consider yourself as a beginner, like a very new to programming language, or like you want to switch from one programming language to another. So it can be of anything. Your first option could be Python. So this is one of the reasons why we need to go with Python. And if at all you have any of your friends or relatives who are studying in CBSE, you could have heard from them the 11th and 12th syllabus of CBSE is changed to Python. So earlier during our schooling, considering most of you are freshers and most of you are like working professions, we can keep a 50-50 scenario. So obviously, we would have learned C, C++ during our schooling, right? So I believe, if I'm not wrong, in the year 2019, the CBSE syllabus of 11th and 12th, they have changed it to Python. So in their 11th, they are learning Python. And not only Python, they are learning machine learning as well in their 12th. So that is the level of importance that is given to Python. And this course is going to make you industry ready to face industry related challenges. So this is how the course curriculum is built. Okay. So having said all these things, next after that, let's say, okay, this is Python. Fine. So if we are learning any programming language or if we are using any application, we need to know what are all the versions that are available, right? Suppose, let's say you download your WhatsApp, Instagram. Every now and then you will get some updates. So it will ask you to update you to the latest version. So what is the purpose of updating it to a latest version? So they will have some new functionality added to it. So some security tightening would have been made. So all those things will be done, right? So here as well, in Python, we have different versions that are available. So initially, the first version, which is 1.0, it was developed in the year 1994. Then followed by that, we had many versions of Python. Until 2008, we were using 2-point versions. And currently, we are in 3-point versions of Python. Okay, that is 3.1, 3.2. And now 3.10 is the latest release. And 3.11 is under development. So during our course as well, we will be using the latest version of Python that is available. We will stay updated. And also one more thing to note here is, in the year 2020, Python development team had told that they have stopped supporting 2-point versions of Python and they have advised beginners or newcomers to go with the latest version. So obviously, if you are downloading any application, you will obviously look for the latest version, right? So likewise, be it a programming language or any other application, it is always a best practice to go with the latest version that is available. Next, having said all these things, why Python? The next question might rise, right? There are many programming languages. I have C, C++, Java. Then why I should preferably go with Python for full stack? Why not Java? Java is also full stack is available, right? So why should I preferably go with Python? So this question might arise. So here, in order to answer that, we will be looking into few advantageous points related to Python. The first point, as I was telling you in the first slide, simple programming language, I told you, right? So here you can see it is easy to learn and use. So one of the difficulty that we would have seen in other programming languages, the syntax, right? So you need to use curly brackets, you need to use semicolons. So you would have definitely faced these things, right? So in the school, if you had a programming lab, computer science lab, you miss one semicolon, you will end up in error. And to debug that and find where you have missed that, it was hell, right? So here in Python, we do not have all those things. We do not have those curly bracket stuffs. We do not have those semicolon in our syntax. Those things can be avoided here. And the syntax of Python will be very simple, that you can easily recollect and you can replicate in your codes. So unlike other programming languages, the syntax is not going to be complicated to confuse you. So it will be as simple as that. You just look into it, you will be able to understand it on your own. So that simple the syntax will be. Next, after that, mature and supportive Python community. So what is this community? So here, let's assume you have entered into a job. Okay. So you are given an assignment. So you have started working on it. So one fine day, you encounter an error. Okay. There is no one near you. Your colleagues are not there. You do not have any assistance. You end up in an error. So what will be the first thing that you do? Usually, IT people, what they do, they go to Google. They look for what mistake they have, right? So let's suppose you encounter an error and you copy paste the error message in the Google or any preferred browser, you copy paste it. You should be getting a answer for your question, right? That should be a solution for the error that you have made. So who will be providing you that solution? This is where Python community come into picture. So Python being a programming language that is of near about 3 decades. Here, the error that you are encountering might already be encountered by someone, and someone would have definitely provided a solution for that, right? So once you search for it, you can easily get a solution for the error that you have made. And also in online, you will find plethora of resources that are available, documentation, video resource. You can learn from all those things. So this is one of the major factors here. Python community is one of the major things about Python. We have a site called as Stack Overflow. So if you are a person who is already into programming, or if you are a person who is somewhat related to IT, you would have already known this site called as Stack Overflow, which is unofficially considered as Wikipedia for programmers. So what happens if we end up in error? We copy paste the code. Definitely, you will get a solution from Stack Overflow. It is not like exact solution, but you will get a clarity on what error you have made. And also, if you are lucky, you can even copy paste that code that is available, make few modifications. You will be able to easily overcome your error. So these are few points. Next, after that, support from renowned corporate sponsors. So it is nothing but, let's suppose you want to start your own startup. So you definitely need some backup, right? Backup in the sense someone has to back you up, either through office like bank loans, or you have to have some investors. So Python being an open source, we definitely need backup, right? So this is where corporates come into picture. So they sponsor programming languages, and Python is heavily backed by Amazon, Facebook, Google. So all these corporates sponsor Python. So eventually they are going to be the one that is most benefited out of it, because they are using programming languages on larger basis, right? So definitely they do support programming languages. And apart from that, few one-liners like open source. As I was saying, Python is open source software. That is, anyone can download and use it free of cost. Suppose, let's say, be it a startup or an enterprise, anyone can go to the website, download and use it free of cost. Next is cross-platform. So cross-platform is nothing but I'm using Windows system. Some of the participants might be using Mac, some might be using Linux. So there are different operating systems that are available, right? So Python is available for those various operating systems as well. Next comes data analysis. So here, as Sumi ma'am was showing in her slide, Python is being widely used in IoT, data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence. So this data science is where this data analysis come into picture. It is all about analyzing your data. Let's suppose you have an Excel file. What do you do with an Excel file in your MS Excel? You try to understand what are all the details that you can gather from it. You do some visualizations. Those things can also be performed using your Python. So Python is widely used in the field of analytics as well. So analytics in the sense, the terms that are like now a buzzword, right? Machine learning, artificial intelligence. So these terms are being used the most nowadays, right? So Python is being used in the field of analytics more and more. Having said all those things, the next thing that we are going to discuss is the core perspective of this session, full stack web development. So what is this full stack web development? So as Sumi ma'am was saying during her introduction, so unlike other institutes where they mostly concentrate on Python, so here this course is going to be concentrated end to end on Python, considering your backend and front end. Obviously, I will tell you what is front end, what is back end, I will tell you. So considering many of you are from non-programming background, I don't want to keep these jargons here. I will tell you in detail what are those things. So first we will try to understand this with few basic examples. Okay. So here what happens is first we need to know what is full stack, right? So we will try to understand that first. So obviously, many of us will be watching cricket and many might be a big fan of cricket as well, right? So we can take an example of cricket. So there is a term called as all-rounder, right? In cricket. So what does all-rounder mean? He's good at batting, he's good at bowling. So we call them as all-rounders, right? So you can take this as an example. Full stack web developers are like all-rounders. So they work on front end, they work on back end. Okay, so I have mentioned these terms twice or thrice. So what are these terms? Front end web development and back end web development. So in the third point, you can see. So whatever you see on your screen, suppose let's say you go to a Google page, you see the Google search bar, right? So how does that search bar come? So someone has to design that, right? So here front-end developers work on user interface. So user interface in the sense you are the user, you are going to use that interface. In short, it is called as UI. So front-end developers work on web development, what you see on your screen. They make the websites look good, right? So you go to Facebook, how you log in? You have a login icon, you have username, password. So how that is being done? This is where a front end developer come into picture. So they make your experience better with their user interfaces. So I hope this is clear about your front end developer and back end. So what do back end developers do? Suppose let's say you're typing your login, you type in your password, you sign in. What happens? There has to be some process that is taking place, right? So what happens? Your username, password will be saved somewhere. And once you click on that sign in or login, it has to verify whether what you have entered is right. Correct. So the back end in the sense, what you don't see is what we call as back end. That is the hidden part of the website. So there has to be some back end operation that need to take place to verify your credentials, right? So this is where backend developers come into picture. They do some logical stuffs in the backend. They handle the database. So obviously, the objective, we will take a database into consideration, how we will connect to it using Python. So we will be discussing on that. So all those backend things will be taken care of backend developers. And here, if you want to become a full stack developer, and you need to learn how to create a complete web application from scratch. So we do have frameworks in Python that allow you to do so. So few frameworks are Django, Flask that helps you in web development. So here in our course, we will be concentrating on Django. So having said all these things, so I believe you would have got some idea on what is this full stack. If at all people who are very new to programming or you are a fresher from college, so I believe you would have got some idea on what is full stack web development. So this is not only particular to Python. So full stack is for most of the programming language, it is applicable. So I believe now you would have got an idea of what is full stack, who are front-end developers, who are back-end developers. So I believe you would have got some idea on this. Next, after that, the next version will be is how can I become a full stack developer, right? So here I've given you a roadmap as well. You can see this is with regards to Python. In the first one, you rule of Python, and you can keep any programming language. First, you have to master the fundamentals. Fundamentals are very basics that you need to know about a programming language. You can call it as foundation as well. Let's suppose you want to construct a building. First, what you do, you lay a good foundation, right? If the foundation is good, the building that you are going to construct will also be long lasting. So we should always concentrate on the fundamentals. So if your foundation is strong, what you are going to develop further on that will definitely be strong. So always master the fundamentals of programming language. Basic things to know should be mastered first. Next, here, learn a web development framework. So there are many web development frameworks that are available in Python. To name a few, Django, Flask, Drummed. So likewise, there are many. Here we are going to concentrate on one of the web frameworks that is widely used, which is Django. So if you learn one framework, the others are going to be easy. So if I teach you 1 plus 1 equals to 2, you obviously know what is 2 plus 2, right? So learning one framework makes other frameworks easy to learn and understand. Next, if you are strong on first 2 points, you can create real world projects. So obviously, the main objective of the course is to give you some hands-on training as well, right? So once you have mastered Python and a framework, definitely you can start to create your real world projects as well. And the fourth point, I personally like that point, teaching programming and helping others. So here, I would like to share a scenario. Okay, so I'm in this teaching for near about 2 years. Okay, so that's not my real work experience. So this is like a teaching and guest lecturing. So I'm talking about that. Okay, so far I have trained near about 250 plus students. Okay, so let's consider me 2 years ago, the time when I started to teach. Okay, before that, I was in a level of programming. Let's consider I have to think about a logic. Okay, so it took me near about 3 minutes or 4 minutes, let's consider. So after I started to teach, I'm not going to bluff like in a month or so, I saw a drastic change in me writing a code. It took me near about 6 to 7 months of teaching. I saw some improvements in the way that I think, because here we are like near about how many participants? Near about 41 participants, right? I have told you like in 2 years of time frame, I have taught more than 250 plus students, right? So let's suppose each one has raised a question that I do not know. So I have learned 250 plus questions as of now, right? So it is all about continuous learning, correct? So once you start teaching someone, they might ask you a question which you may not have even thought about. So that definitely happened in my scenario as well. I have come across many questions that are thought provoking. It is not like simply they just ask a question. So many questions that I have come across that made me think logically, okay, so this is how we have to do. And after 6 months, I definitely saw some improvement in the way that I type my code. So teaching programming and helping others definitely improves you. So that you cannot do unless otherwise you master a programming language. But doing so, you can definitely improve your skills. Next, the last one, having done all these things, what is the primary objective here? To apply for jobs. So you can very well do that once you are done with the first 3 points. So you can keep the fourth point as optional. So if you are interested, you can do. Else you can feel free to skip the fourth step and move on to the fifth step. So these are few things about Python. So here, this being a demo session, like a tidbits. So we are just going to look into few basic things about Python. So I believe so far whatever we have discussed have given you a much insights on this full stack developer. Okay, I'll just have few words here. It is not going to be related to my own experience or anything like that with regards to Python. Okay, so why we hated programming during our schooling and now why we wanted to learn programming. So if you already have an answer to it, it is totally fine. If not, I will tell you. In your schooling, what you would have done is you would have seen like typing your own code for performing certain activities, right? So for sorting a data, you have to type a code for it. Then for adding few values, I have to type a code. So all those things you would have seen more on typing a code. But one thing that is advantageous about Python is that you have many libraries that are present. So you might be wondering what is a library, right? So I'll give you a small example. So everyone would have worked on Excel, right? So in your Excel, let's say you want to convert your name into uppercase. What you will do, you are not typing a code for it. What you do there, you just use a functionality called as upper, and you will be able to convert your name into uppercase, right? So likewise here also you have many methods that are available that helps you in performing your operations in an easy manner rather than typing a code for it. So Python makes your life simple. Okay, so it is not going to be that complicated at all. Okay, so you will be able to easily cope up with Python even though you are very new to programming language, or you are entirely from a different domain. You can easily cope up with Python. Okay, so that it is not like I'm giving you an assurance. So it is dependent on your interest as well. So considering you're fully into this and you're very much interested to learn programming, and during the introduction, it was mentioned we will be seeing a overview on database, right? So here what we will do is we will look into a database now, which is MS Access database, Microsoft Access database. So I'm sharing my screen on a database here. Okay, so I hope everyone are able to see, right? So you are able to look into the like it is like a Excel file. So you are able to look file. Anyone? This is how a MS Access database look like. Okay. So you would have heard about many databases like MySQL, NoSQL. If not, you have not heard about it, that is totally fine. So database are nothing but it is used for storing your data. So like in Excel, you have many database, right? So in Excel, you store your data. So you can use it, you can visualize it, you can do anything with your data, right? So in your Excel, there is a restriction. Okay. So what is that restriction? The number of rows of data that you have, there is a restriction there. Okay. So you will be maximum having 10 lakh rows in your Excel. But when it comes to a database, you have no restriction at all. So you will not be having any restrictions here. Okay, so you can have any number of rows of data here. Okay, so how we can connect to such databases? There are certain libraries. So I was telling you, right? There are many libraries that are present in Python that helps you in performing your activities with writing very less number of lines of code, right? So here we are going to look into few libraries that help you in connecting to your database. So having said all about your database, now let's jump into the coding part. Okay, so here I'm not going to explain you the code. Okay, I believe most of you are very new to Python. Okay, so the agenda here is to show you how we can connect to this platform using Python. So this file is entirely a different file. So using your Python, I'm trying to connect to this file. Okay, and there is a question: can Joomla be considered as one of the web development frameworks? So here, Joomla is the first choice of software houses worldwide when it comes to CMS for web development services. Okay. So that can also be considered as a web development services to answer your question. Okay. Hope the question is answered. And others, if you have any questions, please feel free to post it in the chat box. So I had one question and it is answered. Okay. Fine. So having said all these things about a database, so I will just move to my browser where I have my Python code to connect to a database. Okay. So here a database, I told you, it is the place where you will have your data stored. Okay. Database, obviously it is a literal translation, right? So how can I connect to a database? So there are many databases, as I told you, Oracle database, Postgres database, Elasticsearch database. And if you have not heard about all these things, don't worry. Anyways, that will be taken care once you start with your full stack development course. Obviously, I cannot expect you to know much things, right? So I will keep it limited here. Okay. So we have a library called as PyODBC. It is Python Online Database Connect. So we are trying to connect to a database, right? So I'm going to use this package to connect to a database. So if I have to use that package, I have to first install it. Only after installing, I will be able to work on it. So I'm first installing it. So in order to work on that application, so what you will be doing, you will have to first install that application, right? So that is what I'm doing here. I'm installing that library. Then I can make use of it. Okay. So here what I'm doing is I'm giving the path where the file is present, because your code does not automatically know where the file is present, right? Suppose, let's say you're new to a place. I have to guide you to reach your destination, right? So I'm guiding my code to know where that particular file is present. Okay. Next, after that, I'm trying to establish connection to that file. So which file I'm trying to establish connection? To this file, which is present in this portal, then assignment, session 3 and 4 assignments. In that, I have this particular file. So I'm establishing connections there. So in this, you can see towards your left, I'm highlighting in rows. Towards your left, you can see biochemistry, machinery, physics student. So in your Excel, you call them as sheet, right? Sheet 1, sheet 2. Here we refer to it as tables. So in a database, you can have multiple tables that are present. Here, I want to print what are all the table details that are present. So first I need to understand what are all the tables that are present. Then in each table, what details that are present. I need to know all those things, right? So here, first we are trying to connect to the table. So I'm trying to connect to the table and I'm printing the table information. Table information in the sense, table names I am printing it. So this highlighted code does that purpose. Okay. So obviously I'm not going to lecture you on this code. Why? Because if you understand basics of your Python, then only you'll be able to understand this code. But I'm just telling you in verbally what that code is doing. Okay. Next, after that, in this particular table, you have one table called as bio. Okay. Let me go to that bio table. So this bio table is having these details, right? So I want these details to be taken out to my Python environment. So I can do that as well. So I'm going to select all. This asterisk symbol means you are selecting all from this bio table and you are printing it. So you can see these are the details that were present in that bio table and the same is reflected here. So you had a database there and you are trying to establish a connection to your database using your Python. So here, why is this database important to me? So the reason here is, let's say you are working in India and your client is in some abroad countries. Okay, let's consider he is from US, UK, any place. How you will be getting the customer's data? So you cannot obviously transfer the data through any online mode because it is confidential, and larger file size cannot be shared over mail. So all those restrictions are there, right? So this is a database come into picture. So you can consider your bank details. So you go to a bank, you ask for your bank details. They will ask you for your account number. Once you share your account number, they will say all your details, right? So in this date, you have withdrawn this much amount, and this is the current balance you have. All those things they tell, right? Where is your data being saved? So it is saved in the database. So you can take SBI, State Bank of India. They will have millions of customers, right? So where those millions of customers' data are saved, they are saved in a database. So this is the importance of a database. It is used for saving your data, and whenever you want it, you can retrieve those data as well. So you can see I'm taking the data from a particular table, and you want to take the column names of a particular table, you can very well do that. So using your database, you can connect to it, you can perform any operations on it. Suppose let's say I will show you by performing a operation like order by. Okay, suppose let's say here I have a table called as machinery. So let me go to that table machinery. So here I have quantity, right? I want to order this quantity in ascending order. So what happens? 60, 75, 100, 100. That will be the ordering, right? So you can do that as well. You can see 60, 75, 100, 100. So you can perform any sort of operation. Suppose let's say you have 10 lakh rows of data, and you want to filter out only the required data. Let's say people who are having their bank balance greater than 1 lakh. You can easily do that as well. You can write a query and you can very well perform that action as well. Okay. So this is just a bit about Python to give you an idea what can be done using Python. Okay. So there are more to come during your course. So you will get to learn many new things once you enroll. And for that, this is just an eye opener. Okay. So there is going to be a lot of things to learn, and the sessions are going to be very interactive. And as Sumi ma'am told, it is going to be hands-on, because being a programming language, without practicing, you will not be able to develop yourself. So during your math session in school, what happens? You will not just read, it is not a theory, right? So how you did or how you have performed your mathematics, I don't call it as learning mathematics. It is working, right? So how you worked on your math, the same way we will work here, and we will try to have a good grip on Python. Okay, fine. So I hope till this part it is clear to everyone.